Citibank, and Target. Karen began her career in marketing at Digitas in New York. She holds a bachelor's degree in art history and French from Williams College. And Karen comes to us from a little bit warmer weather, and this is her first year in Michigan. And she's surprised by our cold weather because she became familiar with it during our very nice season last year. So welcome, Karen.
Thank you so much. Thanks. So that was a good overview. I don't have to tell you much more about myself. I'm the U.S. social media manager at Ford, and the nice thing about having social media in your title means that my mother has no idea what I do. She's a big fan of MyFace, which is because she just actually can't tell the difference between MySpace and Facebook. So that's been it's been my greatest challenge, is to just get to the point where my mother understands my job. And when I try to break down social media for her, I sort of say it's about people and platforms. So social media is both the technology that we're communicating on and the behaviors and the relationships that we're forming and using those platforms for. So today I was going to give a kind of brief overview about the importance of social media. Hopefully if you're here, you're curious about why social media is important, or you want to sort of further your understanding of the space. And talk a lot about what Ford's been doing, but kind of pull some lessons out of all of Ford's campaigns that are sort of applicable to any company or organization that's trying to work in social media, and sort of at any size or scale. Because I recognize that a lot of our case studies, when I was in the Washington office at Ogilvy, we worked with a lot of smaller nonprofits, and the budgets between Ford and some smaller nonprofits are very different. So the goal is to sort of pull out nuggets and learnings from those campaigns that are applicable to anyone doing anything in social. So kind of go through that for a little bit and then answer any questions you might have. So I actually wanted to kick off with this image. Did anyone see this going around last week? It was posted by NBC News. They posted it on Instagram and then on Facebook, and I just sort of kept seeing it shared again and again. I thought it was a good thing to kind of kick this all off with. They posted it with the comment, "What a difference 8 years makes," and it's a look at the audience at the Vatican when the new Pope was announced in 2005 and again in 2013. And hopefully you can tell from the resolution of my screenshot that that the difference is people listening and paying attention and observing in silence, and people documenting and taking photos with smartphones and filming the occasion. And if you've been to a concert recently, you've probably seen that as well. No one is holding up lighters anymore, it's just cell phones. So, but I think that's really key, that social media is transforming how we get information, it's changing how we form opinions, and it helps us from a brand standpoint. Just, that's how we're deciding between one brand and another. So on the Ford end, we use an understanding of how social media works, the science of influence, and what drives word of mouth to deliver business value. So word of mouth, or WOM, is the most trusted decision and opinion driver. So up here on this chart, you see that this is actually one of very few charts this whole presentation, so don't feel like this is just a charts thing. That recommendations from people are 90%, in terms of what people trust, 90% of people trust recommendations from other people when they're making decisions about products, and 76% say that they trust consumer opinions posted online. And you probably see this in some of your own behavior. When you are buying something on Amazon.com, even if you don't read every single review, you probably find yourself at the very least looking at the number of stars. What, that's only 3 stars? Let me see who's talking about that, at least reading the first 5. The last time you went out to dinner, you probably looked at Yelp or at least started to scan through some online comments. If not to pick a restaurant, maybe to pick what to order there. So we're seeing that more and more, and that's not coming from the top restaurant critic, that's just coming from peers who are sharing their opinions overall. Some global examples: in China, 31% of people said that an online comment from a stranger with experience would influence them buying a beauty product, versus just 17% being influenced by traditional media. And here in the US, when they did a survey of moms, depending on the product category, 34 to 50% of moms said that they would trust online friends over traditional advertising with something. So this kind of brings me to Fiesta, actually for us. So in 2009, we were preparing to introduce the all-new Fiesta. It was our first small car in a really long time. And we were looking at how consumers were consuming content differently, but also how they were making decisions differently, and wanted to make sure that was reflected in our campaign for Fiesta overall. But what was also different about this car is that it had a different target. Our target for this vehicle is the millennial. And there's a huge difference between how millennials are consuming content today, just based anecdotally on following my cousin on Twitter and being extremely concerned by a lot of what's posted there. You see that there's just a lot of comfort with oversharing, with what they're sort of willing to trust or retweet or post, et cetera. And it's when we actually sort of looked at what millennials wanted, I may have understated the number of graphs that there are, but but what we looked at when we sort of found out what millennials really wanted in a campaign, it was about co-creation. They want to come to the table and share their own experiences with the brands. They don't want to just read what we're throwing at them or watch that. They want real-time engagement. They expect you to be really responsive to them right away. They want entertaining events, and they want to create online content. Or it's not just that they want to, they are already creating online content. So this is already part of their behavior, and it's already something that they're doing every day. And this kind of informed, from our standpoint, if we're going to do anything to have credibility with this set, we have to look at the behaviors that they're already showing and make sure that our campaigns are consistent with that. So what we would really have to do is feature the people whose attention we were hoping to attract with the vehicle, and make sure that everything we were doing was really crafted in a straightforward and down-to-earth manner. And we also know that they want to have a hand in those messages that are being created. So we want to make sure that they feel like they own what's out there and what we're putting out there in that space in the first place. That that's something that they have a stake in, and it's not just something that Ford's made and thrown over at them. So we talked a little bit about this. What millennials want, they want to create and share the message. 67% believe in sharing their own feedback. And this is actually, it's not just that they believe in sharing their own feedback, they believe it's their responsibility to share their own feedback. So that's a totally different mindset than the target for a lot of other vehicles. And that means that we have to have a very different level of faith and trust in our product to be able to put it in front of them and know that this is an audience that feels like they need to be out there and be the Yelp vigilantes of the world, making sure that everyone knows the truth about every single aspect of the product or experience. And we also know that, that direct impact ultimately in innovation yields higher input. So we know that when we give people an opportunity to contribute to the process, whether it's about the product or the campaign from a development standpoint, that they feel more invested in it, and they're more excited to share it with their audience, and they feel better about the outcome, and because they feel like they've trusted it, they've helped create it. So we created the Fiesta movement. We gave 100 participants a car, a brand new Fiesta, for 6 months, and all we asked was that they do one mission a month and share that information with their fans and followers. Is anyone in the room familiar with Fiesta movement as a campaign? All right, we got 2, and you're cheating. So this is actually a really, really a great case study for us. It's the right audience, it was the right car, and it was the right time for a program like this. But it also, it gave them all of the opportunity to do everything we just talked about, to actually document and share that process in the vehicle. And it wasn't about our vehicle as much as it was about their experience and their life in the vehicle and sharing it with everyone. So what this actually brings up, though, is that question of trust. You have to have a huge amount of trust in your product to be willing to hand it over to someone and say, live in this for 6 months, enjoy it, share whatever you want about it online. And we actually made the promise that within the boundaries of good taste, that we would put all of the content that they made up on the website. So you make a video, you say that you have an issue with this product in the video, and it goes up on the website as long as there's no profanity or anything like that that we would normally have to screen for. So that's Ford saying we're willing to endorse whatever content you make. And that's real trust and faith in your product. And that's not just about the people or the campaign. That's a different mindset that has to kind of be brought to the table. So what did we get from this program? We got 6.2 million YouTube views, 750,000 Flickr views, 40 million Twitter impressions. And it's tough sometimes to share these numbers and the impact that they made 3.5 years ago when you're sort of thinking about volumes of things, and Gangnam Style gets, what, like 60 million views in 2 weeks. So I recognize that maybe the numbers may seem a little lower, but at the time, from a scale standpoint, these were pretty off the charts for us. But I think what will resonate, regardless of time period, is that this program brought 132,000 hand raisers for the vehicle. And 82% of them were brand new to Ford, and 30% of them were under the age of 25. Hand raiser means someone, someone filled out a form and said, I want to learn more about this vehicle as soon as it comes out. So it's making I mean, you're not buying, but it's a key buying action that we would measure. So I sort of talked about lessons and what you can pull out of this. No matter what you're doing, the real lesson here is that if you have a good product, you need to let go of your fear and let others tell your story for you, because that will be more authentic and more credible and more real in the space. And it does take that trust to do it. And we, on the agency side, the level of trust that some clients have when they're trying to let go and actually let that happen versus I'm not going to moderate everything they say. We're not going to only share the good comments. There's a huge amount of trust that has to be put there. But when you have a good product, have that faith and let it go. So talking a little bit more about the sort of evolution of social, a site I wanted to point out is Ford Social. This is actually, this is our social hub for most activities. But it has an interesting sort of birth. This began as the Ford story, and in the depths of financial challenges, we launched this site as just a place for us to tell our story. We wanted to have a human platform. It wasn't about press releases or media that you were reading about the financial collapse. It was about one platform where we could be authentic and share our story with the public. So we launched the Ford story and sort of owned the conversation there for a while. And sort of once we were in this post-carpocalypse state, we wanted to continue to talk about the progress we were making. We built a site. We had an audience there. We had people who wanted to hear more from Ford, and people who sort of raised their hands and said, we want to hear some of the sort of fun news that are coming out of the company. It's not necessarily media. It's not people following the media site and press releases. It's just people who like and want to hear more about Ford. So we knew something was missing from this site. And what we added a couple years ago, we invited our fans in, and we added a section called Your Stories, which if I'd done a better job of this, I would have highlighted, but it's a section below top Ford story on the upper right-hand side. And we let our fans actually submit their stories to us, tell us about their experiences. And it was pretty incredible to watch what happened there, because they could find other customers who were like them. They could find relatable stories, and then they would tell us things that were happening that we never would have known about otherwise. We had one guy borrow a car, and he said, I want to see how many mayors in small towns will give me the key to a city while I drive and escape around the country. And so he's documenting this incredible epic road trip and amazing stops in small towns, and I think he collected like 16 keys. We had another couple who borrowed a Fusion, and they said, we're going to go cheap on the wedding, and instead of having a wedding, we're going to go on a wedding road trip, and we're going to visit everyone who we would have invited to our wedding and show up at their house and hang out with them. And they did this all in our very fuel-efficient Ford Fusion Hybrid, and had this incredible journey. And they started sharing stories with us that, again, it would never have been in the New York Times, didn't really have a place other than social media, but it was just a great story about people getting to know each other, getting on the road, enjoying our vehicle. After they got married, they decided that they wanted to change their name and felt like the only thing appropriate given this experience was they ended up changing their last name to Ford. So, which is a level of brand commitment we haven't seen duplicated recently, but is kind of an interesting anecdote. But I think that talks about the power of your stories and the experiences people are having in a car that, again, they might post them on Facebook, they might share them on a blog, but we gave them a place to tell them, and that's sort of what was most important for us. As it sort of moved along, we added a couple of other changes. In 2009, we invited our fans to be part of the innovation process, and we let them give some input on what they might want to see in upcoming generations of Ford. So there's a section called Your Ideas, and they can tell us about every product, feature, et cetera, that they think would be a good enhancement to the Ford to the Ford product family, and it has a place to live, and they have that conversation. I thought of that too, or did you think about, I mean, and we have kids submitting engineering sketches and designs, but it's a really great, lively conversation just again about the future of our product lineup, and it's a really kind of exciting place to be as a fan and as a member of the brand to observe and see that going on. So given all of this fan-based content that was coming in, we realized that we didn't really have the Ford story anymore. We had so much else happening. So we renamed the site last year to Ford Social. So it's social.ford.com. And this story here, Nana's Mustang, is another favorite. It's about a 71-year-old grandmother who bought a black Mustang for herself and then would race her grandchildren in it. Right? But so it would have been so much better if it had, right? But anyway, no, I don't know. Sadly, was not her name. No, so just these great, wonderful stories that needed a place to live, and we were really excited to have them there and let people share them with each other. Another recent refinement that we've added to the site is the addition of badges, and it certainly feels like a lot of social platforms have badges, et cetera. But the point here wasn't just to have people post and share a badge. It was to help us better customize an experience for our fans. So if you collected a racing badge and a Mustang badge and a V8 badge, it's safe to say you probably want to hear more about motorsports than you do about electric vehicles. And we can actually customize that experience for you. So for us, we're sort of looking at the evolution of social as being a better way to give customers what they want and the information that they want to hear, because social media, as public as it is also about having a personal experience. That's kind of an expectation that we all have. We've also just sort of been looking at that community as a place to grow advocates and make new relationships. So we invited a bunch of fans from Ford Social to join us at NIAS this year. They came to the auto show and got to meet Alan Mullally and a scrum, and they get actually the full media experience. And they are media for all intents and purposes because they're going back and writing on Ford Social about their experiences. We brought some of those motorsports enthusiasts to SEMA, and they got to hang out with Ken Block and Vaughn Gittin Jr. And again, it's about rewarding them for what they're sharing and what their interests are, and making sure that Ford isn't just about the next car that they drive, but about experiences that they have and want to share. So what was sort of our lesson here from Ford Social? It's that social media is not a campaign, it's a commitment. It needs to be always on. And that may mean that you need to evolve your commitment to it. It may mean that you need to rename something, but at the end of the day, providing a place and a platform for people to express themselves and giving them a destination that's always on is really critical for us, but for anyone. So I've talked a lot about always on and some sort of a steady drumbeat, but when we're talking about launching a new vehicle, we take a slightly different tactic, and we did in the case of Explorer. So the Ford Explorer is the vehicle that really, it kind of defined the SUV segment. When you sort of thought about an SUV for 20 years, you pictured a Ford Explorer. It was my first car, which probably just speaks to bad judgment on my parents' part, considering my parking abilities, but regardless. But anyway, we were sort of at a place where we were relaunching the vehicle in 2011. It had a brand new look and a number of wonderful new technologies. It was also a time when the SUV was not necessarily the most popular car on the market. This ended up being relaunched the same summer as the BP oil spill, and gas prices were at an all-time high. The war from a campaign against gas guzzlers was something we saw a lot. And so the SUV was not the coolest car on the block the way it had been in the mid-90s. But we wanted to make a commitment to kind of reinvent how we introduced this vehicle to the public. It was really iconic. We wanted to kind of change that reveal process. So instead of going to an auto show, which is our standard formula, we ended up doing an off-traditional auto show cycle reveal on Facebook. It was our first ever launch of a vehicle on Facebook at all, and I think I mentioned this to someone in the hallway before this started, that we sort of talk about Facebook now has a billion members or over a billion members, and people talk, should I still be on Facebook? What's the future of Facebook? And at the end of the day, especially 2.5 years ago, there's just a mass of people there and an incredible ability to target them. But just as we looked at a campaign for Fiesta that was really custom for the target, and it was about embracing millennials who want to share their own experiences, the target for Explorer from a social standpoint is probably just going to be on, it's soccer dads, and they're on Facebook. Maybe not my face, but they're at least on Facebook. And so we felt like that was also the best platform to reach them on. So we wanted to make sure that because we weren't doing this in auto show cycle, we were doing it sort of off cycle. We wanted to kind of get as much attention as possible. We went the dead of summer, end of July 2010, when there wasn't a whole lot else going on. And what we did, starting in mid-June, we seized the page and started actively engaging on it. And this was, at this point, we actually have community managers for every single product page, and we have a cadence of posts. But 3 years ago, we were still kind of just making sure that we had the right resources against places where there were a lot of people talking. And on the Explorer page, we had 5,000 fans in mid-June. So wonderful fans, we love them, but we were not talking to them quite as often as we were pages that had a little larger population. So we started kind of regularly posting new cadence of information and making sure that we were teasing out photos and information for them. And that was also that in the age of the newsfeed at that time, you'd see more organic conversation. When I saw my friends commenting or posting or liking FordExplorer, all of that came into my newsfeed. It's since changed, so I actually have a screenshot of it a little bit later, but that was really the point of it, was about organic growth and spreading of the message organically. And we also started a contest that said, when we reach 60,000 fans, we're going to start a contest to give away a brand new Explorer, and that started to help pick up speed. And we did reach 60,000 fans right before our reveal date, thank goodness. So on reveal date, on July 26th, we did simultaneous reveals in 9 cities. We had an incredible event in New York with Alan Mullally and Mike Rowe from Discovery Channel, events in Chicago and LA. In LA, they had a sand sculpture like the new Explorer, and in Detroit, we did this gigantic mound of dirt so that the Explorer could be rugged and tough at world headquarters. In Toronto, they had the David Blaine of Canada do some sort of reveal act that I am embarrassed to say I found very entertaining. So we had all of these sort of in-person events for people to take part in, so that there was sort of a big, we were drawing attention to it in a way that it might have gotten at an auto show, but it was a totally different experience. And then after that, we just had steady content over the course of 5 months that let people engage in the dialogue and share those experiences. So this chart's actually really key. Again, sorry, charts again. But it's important to talk about it because this is one of our best examples of the integration of paid, owned, and earned media. And so we actually, with our friends on marketing, we got them to pick up their calendar, and they moved all of their marketing budget 5 months early so that we could put paid media support behind this program. So it was an incredible integrated effort. But on the bottom, from an owned standpoint, we had all these basic activities that I talked about a little bit: teaser photos, unlocking the sweepstakes, just basic things to build that conversation on the wall. So that's our owned conversation happening on our own page. And with the support of our awesome PR team, we have this green line that's talking about our earned media. And when we were doing live chats with the My Ford Touch engineer on the Facebook wall, we were also pitching the same engineer to the Wall Street Journal, so that wherever you were getting an experience about My Ford Touch at the same time. So that was in that pre-reveal page. I talked about those gigantic media events in different markets, and we invited our Facebook friends in all of those markets to join us at every single one of those events. We ended up revealing the car on the Today Show about 15 minutes after we revealed it on Facebook. We didn't totally tell them about that timing, but that's what happened. And had that Facebook reveal that we've been teasing that whole time. And then that red arc behind it is about paid media, so that right leading up to the reveal and then on reveal day itself, we had a really incredible paid media push for it. This is actually going back to talking about the wall conversation that I was mentioning before. If we can go back in time and remember what Facebook used to look like, you can kind of see that all of those actions that our friends used to take on every single page, which would flood our stream at the moment, all kind of came into our feed in the first place so we could see it all organically. And on the day of, we made it an actual online event. And it was with scheduled activities at different points in time. And so at various hours at 11:45, Alan Mullally, our CEO, came and actually did a live chat with anyone who was on Facebook at that time. And if you were there at 11:45, you got to talk to him. If you were there at 12:15, you missed him. But if you wanted to wait until 1:30, Sue Siskey, who was in charge of sustainability and safety engineering at the time, was available to talk to you. And so we kind of kept this really very tight niche, something happened every hour, schedule of events so that this online experience felt like an event versus just watching a live stream webcast where we pull the sheet off of a car, and making it truly, truly interactive for people. I talked a little bit about the paid media integration. This was actually really groundbreaking for us at the time because you can see there's a little like button on the banner ad there on some of our homepage takeovers. That actually, it's pretty commonplace now, but we were the first company to do it. And we had to talk to Facebook about how we could do that and make sure it actually worked. And our online advertising team had some concerns about 2 competing calls to action. But this ended up delivering just really great results for us because we were able to drive people back to a channel where they heard more about us at all times. And if that's not what the same intention of the learn more button on a banner ad, then I don't know what is. So in terms of results, it was pretty incredible for us. We were the #1 trending topic on Twitter nationwide. We were #2 trending topic on Google. It was actually the same day that Tony Hayward, the CEO of BP, resigned in the midst of all of that. So I feel okay losing to him, all things considered. We had 100 million social impressions. We had 400 million web impressions. And when we sort of calculated everything overall, we feel like we reached 66 million Americans with the program in some capacity. And some studies afterwards looked at the effectiveness of the program in terms of driving impressions. And we saw that we ended up being twice as effective as a Super Bowl might have been in driving some key buying actions. And I'm sorry, just going back to that like button on the ads, I'm not going to go back to it. We actually saw that people who clicked like on Facebook and then ended up at Ford.com versus people who had just clicked learn more were 1.5 times more likely to complete a key buying action, build and price in this case. So if you'd actually gone to Facebook and then trickled back to Ford.com, you were even more likely to participate in those activities than if you had just gone directly to that in the first place, which from our standpoint in social media is a pretty fantastic proof point for what we're trying to do. So the lesson here, I talked about it in my 3rd chart of the presentation, was that the complete integration of earned, owned, and paid media can have a significant impact. And in some cases, this is actually sort of being forced as an activity. It used to be really novel, but if you look even at how Facebook is handling stories on its news feed, I don't know how many of you manage a page for a small business or a company or a brand, but you can actually sponsor or promote stories. We can do that as individuals as well to get them back in news feeds. So just those little one-off pieces of stories and content that used to be owned content can instantly be turned into paid. And it's a really interesting kind of merging of those spaces. Okay, so I talked a lot about how we've learned and grown and gotten a little more confident in the social media space. And once we sort of got our sea legs underneath us with a lot of these basics, it was time for us to sort of turn our attention to how we could maybe be a little more entertaining and fun in the space. And that's led us to do a lot more branded content integrations. So I have a couple of examples of that. So this is Focus Doug. In 2011, the Focus had become a little bit of a cultural punchline. We actually had people who had formed entire social groups talking about how much they hated the Focus. It was kind of the rental car that no one wanted to get. And we understood that, which is why we completely redesigned the vehicle and relaunched it. So we wanted to make sure that when we were launching the car, that we did a campaign and took an approach that showed that we understood the conversations that were already happening and frankly made it a little bit more fun. So we put all of our trust at that moment in time in a sock puppet, Focus Doug, and his friend John, the Ford spokesperson. And the whole goal here was to speak the customer's language, be really self-aware about where we are from a product and company standpoint, and be really committed to entertain. And I think we've all seen this when brands try to entertain and fail miserably. It doesn't go well. And really do it right, or say we're just going to be ourselves and we're not necessarily that fun.
I think that went really well.
Oh, I do too. I mean, I think it went well in the sense of, well, that was lame.
What are you talking about? People love the car. People, for whatever reason, seem to think we have some chemistry.
Well, I think what people thought was, why is that one guy trying to overshadow that other guy?
How am I going to overshadow you? You're orange.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying, is why do you even try?
I'm not trying. We're a team here, and I am trying to...
You are trying. Here's what you're trying. You're trying my patience. You know what? I'm done talking to you as a person, and now I'm going to use my finger to text you. I'm going to communicate with you through sync.
This is ridiculous.
And sent.
Please say a command.
Listen to text.
This is how it's going to be.
This is how it's going to be. You're just going to sit here texting me. You know what I'm saying to you? But I'm going to say it out loud. I say LOL. I am rolling on the floor laughing. I am ROFL.
Please say a command.
Listen to text.
You're a sad little man, living in a sadness cave.
Sad little man. You know what? Guess where you don't want to go? You don't want to go into the height thing, you orange hobbit.
Please say a command.
Listen to text!
Your mom likes hobbits.
So good. All right, legitimate laughter. It means we succeeded. But Focus Doug was really successful for us. I mean, you got to see it in action yourselves, but we're able to talk about the product in a way that acknowledges we're talking about the product, but in a way that's still fun for people overall. So we saw 4 million content views for this. Focus Doug, as a personality on his own, got 44,000 Facebook fans. And while those numbers are nice in a vacuum, what was really important to us from a business standpoint is seeing a 77% lift in opinion about the vehicle and a 61% lift in purchase consideration. Again, for the car that was sort of the butt of rental car jokes for a while. And when we think about why we're really effective, it was because I talked about this at the very start. Social media is all about relationships. So Doug actually was active as a profile on Twitter, on Facebook, and he built one-on-one relationships with people online, so they were communicating with Doug overall. And at one point, his Facebook page actually had more fans than that of a direct competitor to the Focus as a vehicle. So we felt like that was we'd done a good job there. So the lesson with Focus Doug is not just to hire professional comedians, but also that people engage with personalities and not with product features. When you actually just try to do another sync demo video, and we have done many, 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 it's very different from just sort of showing them a fun, engaging way that the product works and giving them someone to talk to. We're talking about Focus Doug, the importance of engaging with personalities. I talked a little bit about our customer care team and how great they are, but it's true. So people really they want to get to know, they want to be entertained, but they want to get to know personalities and communicate that way. And a different tactic we took with it, still a web series, was this campaign, Escape My Life. And I'm sorry, this is the one I had video issues embedding. So we're going to see whether or not I can make YouTube work, which will be very embarrassing if it doesn't, for obvious reasons.
What's the catch?
I'm Barry from Detroit. I come with the car.
You work for Ford, and you're gonna follow me around and tell me about the features of my car.
If there's peanuts in this house, I'll blow up like Brando.
As a fiddle. I didn't go to fashion school so that I could babysit Shannon Doherty's dog on a yogurt commercial. Seriously, are you trying to ruin my life?
Hello, Hollywood. Choo-choo.
Not so fast, dustball.
Barry!
Oh, that must have totally freaked you out.
So that's actually this web series, Escape My Life. It's all about the story of a Hollywood wardrobe assistant who finds out that she can participate in an awesome marketing program where she gets a free Ford Escape. But the deal is that she has to drive around with a product specialist the whole time. And I want to make sure I have the direct quote on it, because it was really interesting. What Fast Company said about this one was, in acknowledging how annoying it is when you're forced to watch an ad that's not trying to be an ad, the ad-based show becomes instantly more accessible. And we've all seen it. We've seen 1,000,001 pre-rolls and advertisements that have sort of been worked in, and we try to, from a tongue-in-cheek standpoint, acknowledge that that's obviously what's happening in the first place here. It's built a really good following overall, and Paste Magazine named it one of the top 10 web series for 2012. But what was really fun for us, in addition to showing and syndicating the videos on all these other channels, was the launch of a Tumblr to support it. So we created this product specialist, Barry. He, if you watch any of the videos, is super creepy and someone who makes me actively uncomfortable in at least 2 episodes. But he has a lot of interesting passions and things he wants to share. And so he started this Tumblr where he calls himself Sensei Barry and shares different pieces of content and things that he finds interesting. And his page alone got 12 million impressions and more than 9,000 comments for something that was just sort of aired during a short time and meant to support and give life to this character off screen. It's our best performing blog execution of all time. And it just sort of, it's another example of knowing your audience and knowing what platforms they're on for the escape and that target we're trying to reach. Tumblr made a ton of sense, and sharing fun content there made a lot of sense. So being in the right place and talking a lot about zombies worked out really well for us. For this campaign, for some other metrics in addition to the ones for Tumblr are that we had 1.5 million hub visits, and we did see an increase in favorable opinion over time with this one as well. So what's our lesson here? It's really about embracing the platforms that your audience uses and making sure that even though we don't actually have a corporate presence on Tumblr right now, when it was appropriate for the vehicle, we introduced it for the campaign. So next one, and this is my second to last example, is actually a campaign that's still running right now. It's on the YouTube page for Ford Fusion, but it's happening all over the interwebs. It's called Back at You, and here's the intro.
May I show you something? This is the 2013 Ford Fusion. Powerful, yet fuel efficient. Smarter than your smartphone and beautiful to boot. We are psyched about this car. Right, Dylan?
Super psyched.
And apparently, so are you. Vincent says the new Fusion is drop-dead gorgeous. Mark says our boring Accord is soon to be banished forever. And Michael says no V6? Big mistake. Get in, Michael. That's better. Anyway, everyone's been talking about the Fusion and we've been listening. And to show how much we appreciate your appreciation, we're coming to thank you. How, you ask? Well, maybe we'll run your comment through the mind of Reggie Watts.
The car's super hot looking for cruising at the beach. It's got the VIP looks for dining.
Or maybe we'll drop in on you with a little something unexpected. Not to mention a lot of other awesome stuff that we're not going to tell you about because it's a surprise.
And that's what's fun about surprises, that we know and you don't.
So thank you, America, for telling us what you think. And also, you're welcome.
So some of the different ways that we've been listening to and responding to customer comments, we're actually scraping and following the feed of what people are talking about with the Fusion and then responding to them as quickly as we can. So some of it is taking their comments and making them the heroes on our Facebook page. So some of these people are, this is Jeffrey K, who says, thanks for rescuing me from my Prius, was the cover photo on our Fusion page for a week. But some of the surprises have been a little bit larger. With one guy, he said that he was really sad. He missed seeing the Fusion at a car show. And so we brought an auto show to his front lawn and displayed it there. I'm not actually sure about any long-term landscaping damage, but that did happen. So it's still ongoing. We don't have results from it, but I wanted to make sure I shared it because it has, I think, a really important lesson here as well, which is that it's really key when you build this base of fans and you're listening to fans and you're pushing content to fans, that you also take the time to celebrate them and appreciate who they are and what they're saying and doing. And sometimes it's just a little action of making sure you're really good about responding to the comments that they leave or the words that they put out there. And sometimes it's finding some more fun and creative ways to express that gratitude. I just wanted to come back to the beginning. I talked at the start about Fiesta movement. We actually, to relaunch the 2014 Fiesta, we are doing a new spin on the Fiesta movement, and it's Fiesta Movement, a social remix. We launched it or announced it last month. We're currently collecting submissions now for Fiesta agents, so if you want to be one of 100 people with a free car for 6 months, sharing content and pushing it out on the social web, you can go to fiestamovement.com to share it. But I think it also kind of summarizes some interesting lessons that we learned. Well, maybe we didn't do that, but okay. There we go. So the whole thing here is that we're actually, the first Fiesta movement, we created more content and saw it from our fans than we ever expected to. And this time around, we're actually running an entire social campaign for the vehicle. So there won't be separate TV ads, there won't be separate print ads for Fiesta. Every piece of content that's created by our agents is going to be what's considered for our final ad campaign. It's our first entirely 100% crowdsourced campaign. So a YouTube video that someone makes about the car could end up on national TV, just like an Instagram photo that they snapped on a road trip could end up in a national running print ad, which we think is actually a really cool spin on everything overall. This one is a little tough to read overall, but it kind of summarizes that in graphic form. So I wanted to just make sure I mentioned that at the end and showed you that we are applying all of those lessons we learn ourselves and hoping to make everything bigger and better. But kind of wrapping up everything that I said, just sort of everything that we're doing in social at the end of the day is about making things better for our customer. And that's the key thing with social media. It's about listening and assessing what your plan needs to be based on exactly what you're hearing from all of your stakeholders, and then applying that to future programs that you create so that you can be more effective, whether it's in real time or whether it's for your next program. Because you can't really build great products if you're not good at building those relationships and understanding the people who own and drive them.
That was great. You can stay up here. I wanted to thank you for being one of our first speakers for the lifelong alumni seminar, and it's a token of our appreciation. And we're going to get on and see what we can do about tweeting and social media about your event.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks.
And then we'll stay around a little bit afterwards if you have additional questions. And just to help out a little bit, if you could pick up your items. Thank you.